afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me for the webinar on the RIR submission process. So in the ELIXIR Hub meeting room, we have Jerry and we have Prem, we have David. Oh God. And online we have a few people here. So this is going to be the webinar to walk you through the process on submitting recommended interoperability resource. So to begin, if you go to the interoperability website from ELIXIR website here and you scroll down, you will get to the link of the general information page near the recommended interoperability resource page, and it should prompt you to the overview of this process. So the general timeline is we have opened the submission call from the 1st of June, so before Berlin All Hands. I had a few people who came in to speak to me on this process at the All Hands last week, and this might be a repeat to a few of you here. But the submission period is from now, the 1st of June, until the 16th of July. And after that, we will have a reviewers webinar. So in a very general picture, because interoperability services are quite a process that are dynamic as the user requirements come in and change at all times. So we decided that we would pull the reviewers from the ELIXIR coordinators, the technical coordinators. So there are about 20-30 of us, nodes and hub. They will have to declare their conflict of interest, and each application will be assigned 3 reviewers. One of them will be the hub coordinator and 2 of the node tech coordinators. After we have the input, comments, and scoring from the reviewers, there will be a ranking meeting. So just to note that the input and comments from the reviewers are not the sole criteria for selecting the RIR. These will be used as the raw materials at the ranking meetings. The ranking meeting will be, the committee will be composed of the hub CTO, so Jerry as the CTO, the platform excos, so Helen, Carol, and Chris, and then we'll invite the external non-ELIXIR domain experts to join in the meeting. So mainly the external people will review the information supplied by the review comments with the input from the excos who know the activities of the platform as well. And we're looking at getting the approval from the head of nodes in December meeting. So far, this is the general timeline overview. Is there any question from the line? Okay, so let me move on to some introduction on the RIR. So RIR, for the submission, we're aiming to find resources that will ideally fill in one of these boxes that you see on screen here. These are the roadmap of our activities inside the EIP. So in the nature of interoperability, we do many things, from identifying standards and APIs, looking for applications, finding the best tools and services for the activities that support the FAIR service. And we do data integration support, and that also includes identifying the pipelines to do such activities. So we're aiming to find the resource that support FAIR implementation, so making your data fair, looking for FAIR data, but we are not looking for databases that have already implemented FAIR. So we were trying to separate this out from CDR and deposition databases that the data platform do. So mainly this is the integration in the interoperability services, and I'd like to stress on this point. So there are some examples from this general website here of what would be eligible for applying into this process. So for example, the resources that are submitted will support the activities of establishing connections between data resources or expose metadata to allow discoverability of resources, create infrastructure needed to build integratable data collection, or access ontologies and other reporting standards to support the delivery of the FAIR principles. So these are just the general guidelines. But if you have specific questions, if you're eligible for the service or other related questions, please feel free to drop me a line. So up until this point, are there any questions on eligibility of the service that might be submitted to this process, please? Okay, so if you need the details on this, the website is there for you. So now, at the time of application submission, what do you need to do? You just need to click on this application form, and the number one on the list of what is eligible is that you have to be an ELIXIR service and resource. So anything funded by ELIXIR or anything affiliated, being on the service delivery plan, or have the official commitment to become one, you are eligible to apply for this process. And because of that, we require that to submit the application, you must log in through our intranet system first. So once you log in and you click on the application form button here, it should load you an intranet website of the form here, where it will spell out the eligibility criteria here that you must be an ELIXIR service, part of the node service delivery plan, or is the commission work. The service must have evidence that it supports an interoperability activity and has been deployed. So it has to exist. It cannot just, we plan to do this kind of application. It must support or be forecast to support FAIR principle. And the last eligibility criteria is not a requirement, but it would be nice if the resource submitted would fit into the EIP roadmap of the data interoperability and other activities relevant to the ELIXIR mission. So as a note here, it's quite straightforward. I will go through it section by section, but it does need a little bit of the details that are concise and should fit within certain numbers of words. So some of you might choose not to finish it in one sitting. So if that happens, you can save it for later and come back to your application and submit it before the deadline. So at the bottom of the page, you will see the button to save it. And once you come back to the form through the link, the general link that I just showed you just now through the each website, once it asks you for your login information, it will redirect you straight back to the application that you've already started. So so you don't have to worry about it. We'll remember it. So now, first section here, before I go into the details of each section, any question on eligibility of the resource being submitted for consideration for RIR selection? Okay, thank you. So first, very important note here that we need your email address. Even though it doesn't say required, it is actually quite very important for us to be able to contact you back. So the PI of the project might not be the person submitting this form, so it would be nice to have both names who are responsible as the PI of this service and the person submitting, preparing this form. So that's the first section here. For each of the section here, the first one is the resource facilitation to scientific research. The questions will ask you specific things, and if you're not sure what should be filled into each box, please click on the help link here that it will redirect you to specific sections. So for example, resource facilitation to scientific research here, we're looking for the answer that answer the questions in each section of the form. Again, if you have any questions regarding how to fill this form, please feel free to reach out to me. So I can't think of anything that might be confusing here. So briefly describe the function, what it does, which in the scope of FAIR does this resource support, then the scope statement, the user of the resource, and if you have the website and the information of the service on this website, like the About page, please do supply that. Also, your resource, if it links to a specific URL, it will be helpful to our reviewers to see that it's up and functioning. So please supply that. There is a section on facilitation to scientific research on interorganizational recognition. So the question would be, does your resource have community recognition by demonstrating through a collaboration that are diverse in the geographical locations or the source of information submission, international diversity, or delivery partners, or if it is funded by multi-organizational funding mechanism. And you will have 250 words, and because it's an online form, you will be cut off at 250 words. So please be aware of that this is the information that we'll be looking at, and if it exceeds the word limit, then it might not appear in the material that the reviewers are reviewing for your applications. So that is section 1. Section 2, again, if you're not sure, you click on the selection criteria, and this document has been reviewed by many members in many rounds. So it should be stable and self-explanatory. So if you click on the link, it will take you straight to the community section of the document here for what we're looking for in the form here. So does it have community impact, and how does it impact the scientific research? Yes, the publication, citations, API calls, project using the resource. Also ask if it can be applied to anything else that are not currently using it. So, for example, if you're a service, you know of your users, but there could be potentially some other communities that could benefit from your service. Who do you think that might be? And a brief description of how the potential user might want to use your resource, and that will help us in this process as well. We also care about the outreach and support, the tutorials, the user support. So we're looking for the resource that are great at supporting, having the help desk mechanism as well, because interoperability, as we are all aware of, can sometimes be challenging to explain to the general audience of what it does, and therefore a help desk mechanism of some sort will be most helpful in this process, and if it's applicable. There is also a section asking if are there any other people, other services that rely on your service being submitted to this process. So that is also playing overlapping in the part of the impact of your service. So if you know of any other services out there that are using your service as a component in that project, please do describe it here. Third section will be of the quality of the resource. We're aware of the diversity of the services in the scope of interoperability. So sometimes the uptime might not be the best description of the quality of the resource, but that is only one of the examples how we measure the quality of resource. So if there's some example here, but please do describe the quality of your work in the aspect of the capacity of service here. Accessibility, how accessible it is, how many, what kind of interfaces does the interop resource provide, how do you use it, and then maintenance quality. So it can be measured by interval of updates, or how do you maintain it? Again, due to the diversity of the nature of interop services, this can be measured in many ways, and we also work in the domain of open codes, so there is some guidelines for sustainable software development there for you, but that is not the only document that should be taken as the example. So again, this is just an example. You might not need to adhere to this example. So far, are there any other questions from the audience? Okay, then the last section here is the legal framework, funding, and governance. This is very important for us to for the reviewers to look at how your resource is going to be maintained, how much impact it does. And again, we are in the support. We're a strong believer of open science. So if there is some restriction on the usage, is it spelled out somewhere? Does it conform with GDPR or other legal issues that we ought to be aware of? Privacy and policy here, please do describe that here, because that some reviewers might be missing this information, but they might not want to reach out to speak to you because it will be a confidential review process. So it will be double-blinded, so the application submitters will not know who reviewed their applications, and therefore the reviewers will not have a chance to contact the submitters. So please make sure that you have completed it to the details, to your best ability. So those are the 4 main things that we're looking for in this application. Again, if you don't finish it in one sitting, you can save it and come back for it later. But please make sure that you submit it before the deadline of the 16th of July. It's not very likely that we're going to extend this deadline because we need to allow some time for the reviewers to review all these applications. So please make sure that you submit on time. And that is the submission process. Specific questions from the audience, please. If there are no questions at this moment, it is also okay to email me later if you come up with the questions during the time of filling this out. And again, we try to provide some examples in text here with the link to relevant documents, and I highly encourage that everyone look through and read through the selection criteria here of how you should fill out this form. If you have a question on the selection process and the governance of it, there is also a link in the document here to explain who will be reviewing these applications and how we're going to rank the applications to be the RIRs. So all the details should be spelled out in here for you. There's a question here. Pete is asking, how does the RIR relate to the core data resources batch? I don't know if there is a relation between CDAR and RIR, other than it will be a different bins of batch. So if CDR services from the data platform gets a batch, the RIR resources will also get the RIR batch to support the fair interoperability.
Hi, this is Pete. Yeah, that was my question. The reason why I asked that is the core data resources. So we're part of a ELIXIR implementation study to assess those resources for fairness. And of course, fairness is quite similar to interoperability in some way. So I was just wondering, do you expect there to be a lot of overlap between core data resources and RIR resources, if that makes sense?
So like I said in the very beginning, right, that we try to separate, because core data resource can contain fair data, right? But RIR is more about the resources that support the making of fair data. So we would try to be the developer of FAIR and not the user of FAIR in this process. Am I making myself clear? Like if you are a CDR because and you contain FAIR data in your CDR, does that make you eligible to apply for RIR? In my opinion, no, because you are not you're not developing a resource to support FAIR. You use some other RIR, for example, to generate FAIR data in your CDR.
Okay. I mean, that doesn't make perfect sense to me because I could imagine, I don't know, take Uniprot. If their data is licensed appropriately, if it's provided in a number of community adopted formats, and they are promoting fairness through their processes, does that not make them a interoperability resource in some way?
So I think in Uniprot there are two parts that needs to be separated out. There is the database part, the data storage part, and there is the curation part. Now we have to carefully look at how they file for this. If for example Uniprot decided to apply for RIR selection, are they referring to the data storage part of the Uniprot, or are they referring to the annotation service part of the Uniprot? And even if the annotation part of it, is it an open service or is it just their internal mechanism to annotate their data? Because those we have a few things to separate out here. So really, like with the service like Uniprot, we need to look at how they file this application. Are they filing it for data storage part, or are they filing it for their service to annotate data so that it becomes fair? Because honestly speaking, by the activities of annotation, I think that should be eligible for applying for this. But is that open? Is that open? Do they take open submission for other people, or they just curate whatever they see fit in the scope of Uniprot? That might be a different question that will determine how the reviewers see their application.
Okay. I mean, I think these things are very complex.
Yeah.
So, like, Uniprot, they curate from a number of different sources, which is user deposition of data, and they do more than just annotate. They curate. So they synthesize data from one form to another, and in doing so, they make it more fair.
Yeah.
So for me, they would qualify as a knowledge base, not just the curation part, or not. It's the whole thing qualifies.
Like I said, we this is the first time we do it, so a lot of this will be a case by case a determination from both the reviewers and the one who review the eligibility of the applications, right? For example, I might let it slip because it seems eligible, but when it comes down to how much of the breadth of the support they provide, do they accept open requests from outside to curate certain pieces of information? That might be something that they might not do as well as others that say, I will curate anything that the public audience requests that I do. I don't know. That's the reviewer's job. And you're touching upon a different section here that in parallel, we are also working on the registry, right? And we're still trying to define what is a registry. Does knowledge base is knowledge base counted as a registry? And that's still something that we are working out in parallel. So I think this is a live and learn process, and I think we're gonna find out from after the deadline of the applications that are submitting in, and we might have to go through that very carefully at that time.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, no, I completely appreciate that, and that's partly where my questions come from, in terms of trying to differentiate between the different badges, because I think that they're all very useful. But if you're a resource that can apply for lots of different badges,
Yeah.
what's the overlap and so on?
We
And as you say,
try
it's
not to
iterative.
let people double dip.
Yes, yeah, no, exactly. And resources don't want to waste their time; they want to know which one to apply for. So yeah, no, I think we need to live and learn. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I agree with you, right? Because knowledge base now. So the way we see the world right now is that we have the database, we have the resource and services to do the operational things, and then we have the knowledge base that has both the data storage component and the curation component to become the knowledge base. So I think we're still trying to be as precise as we can right now in defining these different bins of service. So that's why the selection criteria are written in such minute scale details, and if in doubt, we will try to consult that document as best as we can, because that document has been circulated for 6 months, going through quite many rounds of reviews and comments. So I really hope that it can be a good reference guideline for when we have to make a call. And if you're a submitter and you consult with the selection criteria and you doubt something, if you would spend some time applying for this, you're most welcome to speak to me. Any other questions? Okay, if not, this is a half-hour webinar, and again, this call will close on the 16th of July, so please make sure that you submit before the deadline, because the review can be quite vigorous, and we need to make sure that it happens in time for the heads of node approval at the end of this year. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me today. Look forward to speak to you soon. And there is a recording of this session, so if anybody that you know of missed it today and would like to come back to listen to our conversation here, please let them know that recording will be available. The link will be posted online and in the chat right now. So Martin will put this link on the RIR General website for us after today as well. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great afternoon then.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.